Hello and welcome to the yet-to-be-named Magic the Gathering podcast with myself, Alex, from ReallyPrettyMTG, and my good friend Dom, aka the Dominator MTG. How you doing, my friend?
I'm really good, thanks.
Good. We have just finished the pre-release for the latest set, Murder at Karlov Manor. I'll let you kick off, Dom, as will come apparent in a minute, but how did you do? How did you enjoy the day, the set? Anything notable? We'll get on some cards in a minute from our decks, but take it off from there.
Okay, so from my seal pool, I managed to build a Rakdos, so red-black deck.
Yep.
A few of my rares put me in those colours, which I'll go through in a minute, but I did pretty well. I entered the final rounds, so 5 rounds for this pre-release,
yep.
And I went 4-0 in the first 4 rounds.
Very good.
So I was in the running for first place.
Yep.
And then I did actually lose my final game.
Oh dear.
There ended up being 3 players on 4-1-0, and my tiebreakers cost me, and I slid down the table to second place.
Ooh.
Oh, based on the tiebreakers.
First winner, isn't that what they called it? Second place? First winner?
First loser.
First loser, that's right. But I would have confused.
Yeah, so I was the first loser in second place.
That's just made my day, that has.
Yeah, how did you get on?
Not quite as good as you. I think I ended up coming about 12th out of the pool. I had a bit of a rough start. Ended up getting sort of 2 losses. Pulled it back to then 2 wins, and then I ended up drawing. Well, no, actually, the last one I lost that was close to a draw. I know you were watching as I was finishing off. It's gone to time at the end of the second game, and that winner would have been for a draw. There's some long games. We'll come back onto the length of it in a minute, but yeah, overall I was pretty happy with it. So I built something similar to your deck. I basically built a Rakdos deck with a splashing of white, so Rakdos splash more so than Mardu, I suppose. But you know, I was reasonably happy with my deck. The deck building was a bit more. I felt like the rares I had was pointing me down a direction, whereas in previous pre-releases I've been like, oh great, I could go one of 2 ways, or go the wrong way and then miss it, like in the last one with the dinosaurs, which you. So gave me the correct information on the way forward. But
at least you had a lot of rares in the same kind of colours, so you could run them all, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll go through some of the notable cards that I had, and then how I built around it, and then we can go on to yours. Then we can start talking about some of the individual matches. But so my really sort of notable cards was I pulled an Aurelia's Vindicator. So that's a 2-mana white creature angel, 4/2 with flying, lifelink, ward 2. Also has disguise. We'll come on to disguise a little bit further down the line, because I think we've got a lot to talk about, and I think disguise is probably going to be its own thing. I also pulled a Judith Carnage Connoisseur, and yeah, I really enjoyed playing that card. It was very, very good. I also, as one of my promos, I got the Tesa Opulence Anarchy? Something like that. Anyway, it's a 3-mana, 2/3 with Death Touch. Beginning of your end step, investigate for each opponent that lost life this turn. That was great. And whenever a clue you control is put into graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. It only happens once a turn, but that was really, really nice.
That's pretty
come back to a bit more. So basically, I built this around clues and investigate, with a little bit of a sort of there were some disguise cards in there, and I also had some like evidence cards. So again, we'll come on to evidence in a little while once you've discussed yours. But yeah, it wasn't too bad at all. It took me a while to sort of get into the swing of it, but I was generally pretty happy with it. What about yours, Dom? What did you build?
Okay, so in one of my early packs, I managed to open Rakdos, Patron of Chaos.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
So this is a mythic card. It's a 6/6 demon, costs 6 mana, 4 generic, a red and a black, and it has flying and trample. So it also has some text. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land non-token permanents, and if they don't, you draw 2.
I mean, that's what I liked about
So
it.
it normally says you just draw 2 cards because that's a high cost for your opponent to pay at that stage.
Particularly non-token as well.
Yeah, that's rough in the set because normally you would just sack some clues, or there's quite a lot of things that make little 1/1 tokens and things. Whereas 100%. Non-token permanents, non-land is rough. So
very nice.
So I built around that. That was my curve topper, and I didn't even draw him for most of my games. But when I did, he just had such an impact that I normally ended up winning that match.
Yeah.
I got a couple of other really good cards for this format, which I felt there's a lot of 2/2 creatures because of the disguise again.
Yep.
So I managed to pull out a Krenko, the Baron of Tin Street. So he's 3 mana, 3/3 with haste.
Yeah,
which
nice.
is just brilliant in this format. And he's got a whole lot of other words on him that didn't really matter for me. But if you've got a board of goblins, you can sacrifice artifacts to pump them all. And whenever an artifact's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you can pay a red to create a 1/1 goblin.
Yep.
So this card is really good.
Yeah, I'll be honest with Krenko. When I first read him, I think I didn't quite register how good he is. Having haste on a goblin like that and a 3/3 as well for 3 mana. It's pretty good.
Even without any other words on him, that's a pretty good card, all told.
100%. I mean, bear in mind there's a lot of clues hanging around here, and I think looking at the bigger picture, maybe in something like Commander, treasures are all over the place.
Yeah.
I think this could be pretty good. He's definitely raised my estimation. I think that was my lack of understanding, and I probably didn't read him properly, knowing me. But yeah.
Did you open a Krenko then?
I did not.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I can see a nice foily one winking at me that you opened, which is very nice.
Okay, there's a couple of other cards that actually served me well as well. I got the one of the new enchantment types, which they're called cases.
Oh yeah, these were cool.
Yeah, so I got the Case of the Stashed Skeleton, which is 1 generic and 1 black mana. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it.
Yep.
So when you suspect a creature, it's a condition that gives it menace and it can't block. The cases, they sit on the battlefield, and then you solve them if you meet the condition.
Yeah.
So to solve this case, you have to have no suspected skeletons. So if this skeleton that you create dies, you then solve the case, and then you can pay 2, sacrifice the case, and search your library for any card, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Demonic tutor at the end of it, basically.
Yeah, so it's like a very delayed activate only as a sorcery demonic tutor. But
I actually really like these case cards because I felt like I had one in my deck, the draw one as well. So whenever I can't remember exactly the wordings, maybe I'll grab it in a minute. Basically, it helps you draw cards, and if you're empty-handed, you can draw more cards. I was pretty happy with it. But the things I really do like about them is it gives you something when you cast it, and it gives you something to work towards, and it gives you something when you finish the case, basically. I mean, these are quite nice, instead of it like, say, sagas where they just tick down, these you may be thinking, well, I'm going to get this down because this can hang around for a little bit. And I think particularly this one, yes, it's a slightly delayed sort of demonic tutor, effectively. But ones if you don't need it at a moment in time. Ones if you think to yourself, you know what, I think I've got this early game to a certain degree, and you get to the mid and your opponent plays something, you think, actually, I need that artifact removal that I've got, or whatever, that kill spell that's going to exile this creature that keeps, causing me issues. I know that's very situational, but I think I quite like these case cards. Now I've played with them, they feel really nice. Like I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah, they are quite different to sagas in that, like you say, they don't tick up automatically, so you can kind of solve them when you choose almost. Especially this one where you can activate once the skeleton's gone, you can choose when to activate it, but obviously only as a sorcerer. It's only going to be in your turn, but still, that's really good.
So the one that I had in my deck was Curse of the Crimson Pulse. It said when it enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw 2 cards for 3 mana.
That's really good.
Yeah, which is pretty good in itself. And then to solve it, you have to have no cards in your hand. You can only solve it at the beginning of your end step. But once you'd solved it, it says at the beginning of your upkeep, draw your hand. Discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. But unlike your one that sacrifices, this one just hangs around, so you can just keep vomiting your cards out, and you'll draw 2 cards in your upkeep.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that just stays on the board. Yeah.
And
every turn you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get down to 0 cards, you're going to get the benefit of it.
When I put this in my deck, I was thinking to myself, discard a card and draw 2 cards. Great. It's a bit like a bit more of an expensive Faithless Spending, whatever. But actually, once I used it, I was like, oh wow, actually this is really nice. This was really, really nice, and actually actively encouraged you to just play your cards. And with the deck I built, I felt like I wanted to do that. Actually, I wanted to try and gain that advantage. And if it kind of got destroyed, it's like, oh well, it is what it is. I had a little bit of a reanimator thing going on there as well, a bit of sub theme with a single card, but. Yeah, this was really nice, actually. I like the cases. They feel nice. And to be honest, if you've got enchantment removal, I think that might feel a bit of a bad destroying some of these, if I'm honest with you, because you're destroying for their potential more so than they're doing something. This is not a Wilderness Reclamation or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously the power level is completely different, but I like these feel a bit more staggered. I really did quite like these case cards.
I think these feel a lot more like the class cards that you got from the Dungeons and Dragons set, where you could level them up to get additional effects. They're kind of more that kind of thing. Yeah. So actually, a lot of the time your opponent won't choose to remove them. But
But I did also like that, to effectively, quote unquote, level up, you don't just have to put mana into it. It could be doing the thing your deck's going to do anyway, and then you can, solve the case. I thought they were really good, and I think I haven't seen all of them. I'm going to start looking into a bit more of these, because I think there would be some really nice ones that will go in some really nice decks. But yeah, keep your eyes open for them, guys, because I think there's some really nice cards. I don't think they're busted, and I don't think you're going to see them all over the place. Maybe you'll see some in Standard or something like that, maybe Pioneer, but it's hard to say. That's a bit too early to talk about that sort of stuff. But yeah, in general, I really liked them, and I enjoyed playing with them, definitely.
I think it just goes to show that you can still innovate and create a new type of enchantment that does something totally different to what we've had before.
100%. I feel like these were a win. I definitely felt like playing with these was a win, definitely. What else about your deck then?
So I did have quite a few disguised creatures. So should we go through what that does now? Or?
Yeah, I think that's probably good. I'll let you read what disguise is.
Yeah, so you've got a creature. Obviously, it has its mana cost and its statistics. But what disguise allows you to do is you can cast it face down for 3 generic mana as a 2/2 creature with Ward 2.
Yep.
And then at any time, you can turn it face up for its disguise cost.
Yep.
So it's very similar to those that played, historically. It's very similar to Morph, but because it has Ward 2, it makes them so much harder to remove.
There were so many times when I was left in a position, I was like, I don't know what this is. Should I remove it? Ward. It swayed my judgment a few more times than I would care to. Yeah, this was good.
So I had a few of these, and because sometimes the disguise cost is out of colour, but a lot of them are dual mana symbols. So I had a white-black card. I didn't have any planes in my deck at all. Mm-hmm. But because the disguise cost is 2 black, you can play it face down and then flip it up later, even without having the colours in your deck.
Yep.
So that was interesting.
Just on that, because I think this is important to discuss in certain decks. We played. This is Sanguine Savior. We both played this card. I had 2 of these. The only one thing I found with it is I did play some planes, but I felt like it gave me the option that if I didn't have that planes, I could disguise it, and then I could pay the 3 to have the 2/2 creature, and then I could get round not having white by paying the 2 black to paying its disguise cost. The only one thing I would say is it felt like a last chance. I didn't really necessarily want to do it. Now, obviously, with this particular card, when Sanguine Savior is turned face up, another target creature you control gets lifelink to the end of turn, which is really, really nice. But I always felt like what I actually wanted this to do is I wanted this on the battlefield just to keep nudging people for 2 in the air and keep gaining 2 life. That's what I wanted this to do more so than the other part. But as much as I say that, I did have a position where I had this... I was looking to pay for its disguise cost. I had a big creature on the battlefield that I wanted to give lifelink, and I couldn't because of my other play. So, there's a lot of playing around here, but it's good. What's your overall thought on the disguise mechanic just from today? Then
I really liked it. There was a lot of times where I didn't have the correct mana cost to play the cards, and being able to play 3 generic to play it face down was just perfect.
Yep.
And also some of them are really powerful. So, for example, I had a card called Hunted Bone Brute, which is
excellent.
It's a 3-cost card, 2 generic and a black, and it's a 6/2 with menace. But when it enters the battlefield, your target opponent creates 2 1/1 white dog creature tokens.
Okay.
But obviously, if you play this face down and then flip it up for its disguise cost, which is only 1 generic and a black, you bypass that entirely because it's already on the battlefield, so your opponent doesn't get the positive effect. And I had a couple of flyers in my deck, which is a similar thing, where when they enter the battlefield, you lose 3 life. But obviously, if they're already there as a disguise creature and then you flip them face up, you can make some kind of trades. So it's a 4/2. You can block a big creature and you don't lose the life. So there's a lot of interesting ones. And I ran I ran another one called a Rift Burst Hellion, which it's a green-red card, but its disguise cost was 4 red. So obviously I could flip it face up. And it's a 6/7 with reach.
Yeah, this is seemed good.
So that was really good for me. But I think if you're drafting or playing sealed, the fact that you can play them, you're always going to have something to do on turn 3. Because worst case scenario, you can put one of these face down. It's a 2/2 with ward 2. And you can normally make a trade. A lot of the time, you'll be trading them for other creatures, but that's fine. It's really interesting.
I think if you're trading for other creatures, particularly if they're particularly problematic, it's not terrible, is it? It's a card for a card, basically. It's one less problem you have to worry about. Okay, it's more ideal if you can turn them face up and you are killing something and you're keeping that, but equally, a trade's a trade normally half the time with those sort of things, isn't it?
I think a lot of them, when you flip face up, they're still 2 toughness. So
it's still got a bit of meat on the bone there, hasn't
it? There's a few that obviously the disguise cost is much bigger, but if your opponent's got 2 mana, you're probably going to make the trade, even if they block with a face down creature and flip it face up. They might just get an effect as well.
Yeah, of course. The only thing I would say, I enjoyed playing disguise. I felt like it just added another layer of complication to the game. And I don't know whether you found this, but in a lot of my games with me and an opponent playing it, it did slow the games up a little bit. Is that really a negative? Depends on your type of play. I like it because I can have my 2/2 on the board. The ward is fantastic. The more I see ward, the more I really like it. But I really like that you've got that. So if there's nothing going on, I'm going to nudge you for 2. Or you can even try and bait them for a block. Like, they've got a 3/3. I'm going to 2/2 you. And there's a chance that you could, haha, there's a trap. If you flip it over and you pay your money, you pay your mana, all that sort of stuff. But like I said, I just want to mention, I feel like with this, it did slow the games a little, but very good. I very much enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it.
I think if you've got a lot of them and you forget which ones are which, you can spend some time having to look at them, because you can look at them and your own ones at any time, right?
Yeah, you can do, exactly. But it's having those. It's another thing to think about. It's something I definitely want to sort of say about the whole set. As much as overall I enjoyed it, and we'll summarise this later, but there's a lot of text on a lot of cards, and there's a lot going on. I think once we've settled down and we get to know these cards a bit more, these will become second nature and it won't be a problem. But I definitely found it pre-release. There was a lot of, what does this card do? Oh, yeah, no worries. And then they'll go for a block and I'm like, this because of, or you'll play a card and, I had it earlier with a card called The Chasers On, which is an instant. It's a 2 and a red. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until the end of turn, which was chef's kiss, by the way. But the more important thing that I really liked was there was investigate as well. So you're grabbing a clue from it.
Yeah.
And the amount of times where, you announce it, you do your combat trick, whatever, you grab your clue. And I think I had it a couple times, not just with that card, but with others, where the opponent was like, this dies, or blah, 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 or, where did that clue come from? So, it comes up this card. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of, it's very wordy cards. I mean, we've got a selection card set in front of us, and I'm seeing a lot of words.
Yeah, there's an interesting card on the set. It's called Caught Red-Handed, and I actually misread this card before I played it. Mm-hmm. So I tried to play it to... I'll read what it does. It's 5 mana, 4 generic and a red, and it's an instant, which is important. Can't be countered, so you can target a ward creature, for example.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And it's gain control of a target creature until end of turn, untap it, and it gains haste until end of turn. But the important text is suspect it, which means it can't block. So because this is an instant, most of these kind of effects are sorceries. You do them in your own turn.
Yep.
You steal their best creature, say, and then you get to attack with it. Because it's an instant, I thought, I can, steal their creature and block with it. No, you can't, because it gets suspected, which gives it menace, and it can't block.
Yep.
So I played this, and I thought, and then I read it again, and my opponent was like, are you sure you want to do that? And then I reread the card and realised that it didn't work how I thought it worked.
Yeah.
That's always a thing with pre-release, because there's always so many new cards.
Of course, yeah. So I always like to try and think to myself, if I'm sat down with these cards and I'm trying to either introduce a new player or someone that's very new to Magic, I do feel like this, from what I've seen so far, this set is very wordy. There'll be a lot of explanation. But I have generally enjoyed it. We'll come on to summarise later, but I've generally enjoyed it, and it's been very, very good fun. Okay, so from your deck, what would you say, or from your games as well, what would you say was the card, the top trump of the deck? Then what card did you just felt like done you so much?
Honestly, it's probably Krenko.
Yeah.
3 mana, 3/3 haste, and because everyone's playing these face down cards that are 2/2s.
2/2s, exactly.
A 3/3 just seems like a sweet spot on the curve, because they normally on turn 3, almost every game, my opponents paid 3 mana and they played a 2/2 disguised creature.
Yeah.
And you come in, you've got, say, another creature from turn 2 or something, and then you play down this 3/3 and they just can't block it.
Yeah, they're not. The thing is that it's a hell of a risk trying to bluff against that. You could quite easily. You could be like, I've got all my mana open. I'm gonna swing in then, and you always have to bear in mind what it could be. But a 3/3,
3/3 suddenly, those 2/2s aren't looking so hard.
We can't even bluff that. Yeah. Or if you do, you're only probably going to do it at once, and then you're going to regret it.
Maybe your things are 3/2 and you can trade, but it's generally not a good block. For your opponent at that stage, and haste is just very good.
Nice, very nice.
So every time I saw him, he was just a brilliant card.
Yep.
And the other one was the Hunted Bone Brute.
Yep.
Being able to pay 2 to flip it up, face up. So it was a 2/2, and then it becomes a 6/2 menace. Mm-hmm. And when it dies, your opponent loses 3 life.
Yep.
It's just very powerful, because a lot of the times they wouldn't block it, and then suddenly you pay 2 mana, and instead of taking 2, they're taking 6.
Yeah.
Which is brutal.
Yeah.
So
that's
this card is very good.
That sounds rough at that point then, isn't it?
Yeah. But those two I think were my best. Rakdos, when I saw him, he was amazing, but in most of my games I just didn't draw him. How it goes.
Sometimes it happens. Yeah, that's magic, isn't it?
There was another card which was brilliant, Red Herring.
Oh, yeah. So
I'll let you describe the card.
I tell you, so Red Herring is it's a 2/2 artifact creature. It's a clue fish for a generic and a red, and it reads haste. Red Herring attacks each combat available, and you can pay 2 generic, sacrifice it, and draw a card. Honestly, I love this card. I had a 1-of in my deck, and whenever I played it, I loved it. I absolutely loved this because I would always... It has to attack. So you would attack. And I would always attack it with 2 mana knocking around, like 3. Because if anyone went to go block it, I was always just like, sure, I'll sacrifice it. I'll draw a card. It's all great. I thought this was really, really nice. And just coming back to that card I was saying earlier, the chase is on, the buff enchantment. The amount of times I gave this +3, +0 and first strike.
Oh, wow.
And people would be like, yeah, okay, I'll block this. Bang. And it's just like, yeah. And I've got my clue, so I don't have to sacrifice it. I was like, yes, please and thank you. Like, I loved it. I also love the name of it. Like, the name of it. It's a red herring.
Yeah, in a murder set.
Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. But there's another card called Red Herring, isn't there, Dom? Why don't you tell us about this?
So, a while ago, they did these playtest cards, which you could get from the mystery boosters and things like that at certain events. So, there is already a 2-cost 2/2 Red Herring. It's not a clue, but... it's amazing. You definitely look it up just for the art. But
the art is hilarious.
It's a fish, and you can exchange it from your hand with a permanent you control on the battlefield or a spell you control on the stack. And if that permanent or spell was the target of a spell or ability, you change the target to Red Herring. It's a lot of these playtest cards, obviously they're not for constructed play, but it was just quite funny that there'd already been a card called Red Herring that had technically been released, although you can't play it in... apart from, with the mystery boost and that kind of thing. But I
would definitely recommend to go check that card out, but also the glasses on a fish is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Very, very good. That card was very good. I enjoyed playing it. I thought there was so much utility on it. 2 mana, 2/2, haste. That's pretty good. With the fact that you can draw off of it as well, if need be. Yeah, I wish I had more of them, if I'm honest with you. I thought they were great.
There are a few cards in this set which do a thing but are also clues that you can sacrifice. There's a whole cycle of equipments, like a wrench, lead pipe and a knife and things.
Yeah, candlestick as well. And there's one other as well. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know. But they're also clues as well as equipments. So
there was also a cycle of lands that were clues. Now, I didn't see any of these. We were just discussing this before we started to record. But why don't you read an example? Because I think these are really cool. I really like these.
Yeah, so I think it's just an individual land, but it's called Scene of the Crime. So it's an artifact land, which is
artifact land, great,
and a clue. It enters tap, but you can tap it for generic. It's got another ability where you can tap and untap creature you control, and then it taps for 1 mana of any colour. So it's good, and it's a clue, so you can pay 2, sacrifice the land, and you draw a card.
But I think I know it comes in tapped, but even if you needed that card draw, you can just sacrifice it anyway because it's not a tap ability. 2 mana.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you don't tap it to sacrifice it.
No.
Worst case, it's 2 mana, draw a card.
Exactly, yeah. And look, I know there's an argument of obviously you need lands to play this sort of stuff, but I think there's great versatility on that card. Is it broken or busted? Probably not. Is it a nice maybe 1 or 2 of in certain scenarios? It's hard to say exactly when you'd need that. I mean, I think in artifact decks that'd be pretty good. It just helps with affinity. I think it's always nice to have something like that on the field that can create mana, but also if you need card draw, you can get rid of it.
I definitely would have played this because of Krenko, you can sacrifice an artifact and pump every goblin you've got, so that's really good for that as well.
Exactly, yeah. It was really, really good. Like I said, I didn't see one, but I think if I pulled one, I think that probably would have gone in there. I think that works really nicely. Very good, very good. So some of my notable cards, I was really hoping to pull a Judith, actually, after we spoke about it on the last pod.
Yeah.
And I had a bit more of a look into it between now and then, and I thought to myself, this is really, really cool. I do really like this. My perspective, I'm more thinking in terms of commander. I think I'm going to have to build this as a commander, particularly after playing it today. It's just wild. It really is. So, for those that don't know, Judith is a free generic black and red for a 3/4. But the best part about all of this is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one, which is the spell gains Death Touch and Lifelink, which is just wild. Wild. But actually what was really nice as well is create a 2/2 red imp creature token with this when this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. You can just do so much with that. You know, if you want to flood your deck with 2/2s for blockers, the problem is when they die, they're dealing two damage. It's like shocks. It's like shocks on the board on a creature. But in all honesty, that gains Death Touch and Lifelink, I mean, was phenomenal.
It's great. I can see yourself, you know, early on you're playing kind of instant sorcery to draw cards, maybe creating the imps.
Yep.
And then suddenly you play a board wipe, you've got a bunch of imps. Give it Death Touch and Lifelink.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's a red, she's in red, so you've got stuff like Blasphemous Act, going to deal 13 to everything with Lifelink and Death Touch. So that's a full wipe. You're going to gain hundreds of life, and then you can, you know, you're in black, so you can spend that life in numerous ways.
Yeah, Bolas the Citadel is you've got that in play. You're off to the races with it. But so for me today, I actually didn't use the spells gains Death Touch and Lifelink ability once today.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is, to me, is the most powerful part. But what I did find was, because a lot of them were like pump spells or kill spells. So, I played Murder a couple of times. There's no point giving it Death Touch and Lifelink. Not really, because it's not going to get the Lifelink. It's going to die anyway, that sort of stuff. But those imps coming out, there was one game in particular, I mean, I managed to get about 3 or 4 of them out, and it just, my opponents, it was just so difficult, because he was in this position where he's like, well, I need to block these, but I can't really, because I'm going to take the damage anyway, and I think he probably just left it 1 turn too late, because I just swung in with everything, and he had to block everything. But then by that point, there's no point blocking them because they're going to do damage. Yeah. I can't remember what I'd done with it, but one of them had lifelink on it as well. So it was a lifelink counter on it. It was just great. Like I had real good fun with that. So Judith was definitely a really, really good one. Another one that I really enjoyed was a card called Persuasive Interrogators. It's 4 generic and 2 black for a 5/6 Gorgon detective creature. And it reads, when Persuasive Interrogators enters the battlefield, investigate. I'll come back to that in a minute. But a second part, which is real sweet, which is whenever you sacrifice a clue, target opponent gets 2 poison counters.
I'm interested how you found this in action, so I think we discussed this card on the previous pod. And yeah, it's quite interesting. If you can get a critical mass of clues, you can poison out your opponent. So,
the reason why I think this was great was actually, in terms of the mana for what it is, it's not incredible. You know, a 6 mana, 5/6. I nearly didn't put it in the deck, but what I did really like about it is that it was creating a clue for me. I was investigating. I had other investigate cards. And I thought, do you know what? I'm probably going to use these to draw. But if I've got a bit of a stockpile because I'm doing what I need to do, I mean, if you've got 6 mana to play it, if you're cracking 3 clues, that's 6 poison. You could quite easily get those other 2 and you're away. Like, I can see it is an expensive top end. Is it going to be a playable card in sort of standard formats? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because there's quite a bit of poison around in a minute. We have to remember that.
Yeah, also relevant.
Yeah, but actually this performed a lot better than I expected it to. But it wasn't the second part that really was great for me. It's the fact that it was a 5/6 and the amount of times where either my opponents had flyers and it didn't really matter. Well, I had some flyers to deal with that, or they just had creatures that were like, I can't even really double block that. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like 6 toughness is quite. I felt like I saw a lot of 5/5s.
Yeah.
While I was playing today.
Well, again, this at least in 2 games, I cast the Chasers on, and when it got +3 and first strike, particularly, I had someone who went to triple block it. And the Chasers on it, and it was it was beautiful. It was so good because it killed the first one in first strike, and then just went across and killed the other 2. Yeah, it was just beautiful. I think even if this was a 5 mana 5/5, I still think it'd be in the same predicament. But the fact that it had 6 toughness, it really just gave it a bit more oomph behind it. It was absolutely great. And then the other card, just one more card I want to talk about, which I think was really, really great, was a card called Soul Intervention, which is an enchantment. It's a 3 generic and a black. Here's the best bit. Flash. And then it reads, when Soul Intervention enters the battlefield, target creature gets -4/-4 to the end of turn. This as a removal was really, really good. Like 4 mana for a -4/-4, it's okay.
Probably fine.
Yeah. Flash was really nice. But actually, the second part, which was really good, which is whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, an opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Now, we haven't spoke about it yet, but when you collect evidence...
It's just a mechanic from the set.
Yeah, I'll explain that one in a minute. But basically, when you were collecting evidence of creatures, you're doing your opponent 1 damage... and you're gaining 1 life off of something that you're going to have to do already. So what collect evidence is, so it normally is a cost, so it's normally like collect evidence 6 or 4 or whatever. And what this is that you exile cards with total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard. So I'll tell you an example. I had the Chase is on. I know I keep talking about this card, but honestly, it was a great card in my deck. It's a 3 mana. So, and I had 2 of these in, and I had, actually, I think it was... this card, Extract a Confession, which was you can. This reads as an additional cost to this spell, you may collect 6 evidence, and then for each opponent sacrifices a creature. If evidence was collected, instead, each opponent sacrifices a creature with their greatest power among the creatures they control. So this was forcing big boy sacrifices, but with the collect evidence, I just had to sacrifice 2 of those, the Chasers Ons, that I weren't going to get back.
Yeah.
And I was forcing a sacrifice for their largest power as well. It was really good. And I had this Soul Intervention on at the same time. So it was, they lose 2 extra life and I gain 2 life.
That's rough.
It was sweet. Is it broken? No, but it worked really nice in this deck. I really, really enjoyed playing it. I really, really did. Another deck in my deck I just want to talk about, which was a card called Demand Answers, which is a generic and a red instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card, draw 2 cards. I really like this. This was fantastic. I had clues. If I weren't doing anything with them, I could sacrifice them. Or what was most of the time happening is basically it's like a faithless looting, which was... I had a redundant card in my hand. I'm going to sacrifice it. I even had to sacrifice a card with high mana so I could collect evidence with. Right. But it gave me the opportunity, so it fueled that.
Okay.
And I could draw my 2 cards. It was really sweet. A bit more versatility than Faithless Looting, you could argue. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a really good card. Performed well. I wish I'd had another one in my deck, maybe 2, but...
This is sealed, not constructed. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. you can't ask for everything, can you? Let's be honest. But
the fact it's instant makes it really good.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it was sorcery, it'd just be extraordinarily meh. But instant is great. Particularly what I could really see would be quite nice is particularly with I can't remember the card, but is it Get Lost? Do you get 2 treasure tokens? So what could be really, really nice is that by having your thing destroyed could give you the fuel to maybe get a bit more of a cheaper, particularly if you've got stuff in your hand that you don't want to discard.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bit niche, but, equally, I don't think that's a terrible thing to have knocking around. I thought that was good. I thought it was a good card. I definitely enjoyed that.
There's definitely some cards that will go into, like every set commander fits in nicely.
I think that slots into commander really nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally. I think that works really, really good, really nicely. Anything else of note from your deck before we talk about the games?
I think that's probably it from my deck. Yep. I was happy with how it played.
Yep.
I just failed at the last hurdle.
Yeah, it's tired winning legs.
It was the tie breaks.
Yeah.
A shout out to Kieran's Limited, who attended the pre-release.
Yeah.
And I did play against him in the early round, and just by the skin of my teeth, I managed to defeat him. And then
it sounded like a real tight game.
Yeah, that was really good. It was great to see him. And Yeah, and then unfortunately, I guess because I'd beat him earlier in the game, he didn't feel like winning his final game, which might have pushed me into first place. So he got his revenge.
Final revenge.
Albeit indirectly.
No, it was really good to see Kieran. We obviously first bumped into him up at MagicCon Barcelona. Spent some time with him. Great to spend some time with him. And I know he's got some up-and-coming RCQs, which I'll be interested to see how he gets on.
Yeah, that'll be very cool.
Very cool indeed. But yeah, so just a bit of an overcast of my games. Like, it took me a game or two to really get the feel for this deck, for me personally. But once I sort of stretched my legs and got my head around it, I really enjoyed playing this. My first game, I was a bit all over the place. I had a better player than me, a lot better player than me as well. So I think if I'd had an equally levelled player, I think I maybe would have had to stumble through it, maybe snag an extra win. But it is what it is. I was happy to play it. I ended up with 2 wins, all right, 3 losses, but is what it is. I was happy with how it played. It was nice to open a pre-release box and instantly be like, okay, these cards are telling me I need to go down this route. Because what traditionally happens to me is I get stuck between 2 different ways, normally make the wrong way. Classic Alex, really. But whereas this one, I felt like, okay, if I wouldn't have gone down this route, I would have just had an absolute trash deck. So I felt like I had to. Although one of my my first cards from the pack was the Azorius signposted detective card.
Okay, so it's a detective lord, so it pumps out the detective. Coming into this, I was like, oh, if I can build detectives, I would have really liked to have built detectives because it seems really powerful. And it's blue-white.
Yeah, a bit rude.
I'm so glad you didn't manage to do that.
Yeah, well, some people like seeing other people's misery, don't they, Don? Well, saying that's coming from an Azorius player. But other than that, actually, my blue-white cards, or particularly my blue cards, were just not that great. Were very. I had a little flick through it, and I was like, probably can't go this direction. Black had a lot of my kill spells. The white was pretty good. The flying lifelink stuff, Aurelia's Vindicator was pretty good.
Black removal felt quite premium in this set because there's a couple that can't be countered. So that ignores the ward cost from the disguise cards. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah, excellent. It's always nice to have that. Not so much from in a blue mage's perspective, because I like to be in charge of who gets to counter and whatnot.
I love spells that say can't be countered on. They're brilliant. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to start channeling them or get around that one. Return back to hand. But no, it's very good. What about your games overall? With your games,
all of my opponents, first of all, were brilliant. Every game was
you
fun.
You played some good opponents and had some good games.
Round 1, I actually played the winner of last night's pre-release from the store.
Oh yeah.
And that was that was really difficult.
I was sat next to you guys while you were playing that, and there was a few times I sort of leaned over, and I could tell it was tough.
It was high pressure.
Tough game for you. There was definitely no easy wins going on over there, was there?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Throughout the day, I almost always went 2-1. My opponents normally took a game off me. And it felt like a lot of people's decks were quite evenly matched. But for whatever reason, I kept getting mana flooded, but it didn't cost me in the end. So
That's the important thing.
But all my opponents were brilliant. I played against Kieran again, which is another really close game. He had a really good deck, I thought.
He had a blue. Was it blue black?
Yeah, Demir, and he had a couple of the legends, like a Trata and a Lazav, really good cards. But I managed to edge it. My deck, it felt like it was quite aggro. A lot of the time, my opponents were not doing anything till turn 3, whereas I maybe had a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and then drop a disguise card in turn 3. And I'd already dealt them like 4 or 5 damage, and that seemed to be the difference maker. And then Krenker comes down as well, and I think the top of my curve was good as well.
I felt like that would have been the same with. I felt like the beginning of when I was drawing my cards, if I had a bit of removal, some low CMC, or whenever I saw that red herring, I was well happy.
Yeah,
I absolutely loved it. I really did. But if I had that and maybe something towards the top end or something that's getting me there, I was happy.
Yeah.
I felt like this was definitely a bit more of a mid-rangey deck sort of thing. You know, this wasn't, I'm going low and I'm going to just punch the living hell out of you and you have to deal with it. This was, if I can get you to the mid-game, I can start doing stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I was really afraid of a, low to the ground, hasty deck, but I didn't see one at all, thankfully. But that would have just absolutely, would have just come over the top of me.
Yeah, that's fair.
100%.
You actually opened a board wipe, didn't you, in your seal bottle?
Yeah, which I nearly didn't put in, but actually I'm glad I did.
Did you manage to play it?
Yeah, I played it a couple of times. It's difficult. A board wipe it's a 5-mana board wipe. I can't quite remember exactly what it was, but it always felt like in a last chance saloon, it was great to have, but there was at least one of the games when I had it most of the game, and I could have just done with.
If your head, it's just not great, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas I think what had basically happened is he'd removed. I don't know if it was my Judith, or he'd removed quite a big creature of mine. Actually, I think it might have been the Persuasive Intruders, actually. And then incidentally end up destroying something else, or something else happened, whether it's an exile or something like that. So it become favourable.
Yeah.
But all it really done is it dragged us back to where we needed to be. It gave me maybe another turn or two, but I still ended up losing because he was just so far ahead at that point.
If your opponent can rebuild faster than you as well, it's not great. You've just spent all of your mana wiping the board, so they get to cast their creatures first.
Well, if I remember rightly, actually, I think he disguised 2 cards over straight off the bat, so he's got two blockers. And I was like, oh, great, well, that's not great. And then the next turn, he ended up spending the money on flipping them, and, I think he'd done a combat trick with one of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I needed a bit more than just... I needed to rebuild quicker than I could do, but I also was in a position like, if I don't kill this board right here, right now, we're in trouble. But
yeah.
So, overall, I think the pre-release was good. I enjoyed it. Any other notable cards that you saw that you felt like you wanted to talk about?
As I said earlier, I went into the final round 4-0, and shout out to my last opponent. Their deck was brilliant, and they stitched me up in 2 of the games with Ansrag the Quake Mole.
This is the Mole God, isn't it?
It's the Mole God. And now this card, it's 4 mana, 2 generic red, green, for an 8/4, which is always great when your opponent's playing an 8/4 on turn 4. Wow, that's always fun. But it also has some other text. It's like, whenever Ansrag the Quake Mole becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase.
Oh, God.
So on turn 4, you can't normally block it that favourably. But you can also pay 7 mana and it must be blocked. Now, my opponent never got to that stage because it cost 7 mana, but this is going to cause real problems. And it certainly did for me. Every time I saw it, it was like, I think I had a 0/3 and a 2/2, and suddenly you're facing down an 8/4, and you're like, I literally can't block this, so I just take 8. And they cast a fight spell, killed one of my creatures, and then swung in for 10 as well. And you're I lose this game.
Yeah, that's some pretty aggressive play. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So this card is real good, and it was rough in limited. I'll say that much. But, apart from that, I lost my last game and slipped down to second place because of the tie break. So there we go. So. But overall, I really enjoyed the format. All the games were fun, and it felt really nice. So.
What about your? Let's just start talking about the generics of the set now. What's your feeling about the set so far from playing it? And how did you? What are your thoughts on the set so far?
I really like the clues coming back is great.
Me too.
I think everyone enjoys it. Drawing cards is always great.
Yeah.
And when you've got like lands and creatures that are also clues and equipments that are also clues.
Yep.
In a pinch, you can sacrifice them to draw a card. You know, it's like a classic commander card, Mind Stone, where it's a mana rock.
Yeah.
And you can always sack it to draw a card if you're in a bit of a situation.
Yeah,
and I think all of these cards that allow you to sack them as if they're clues are really good.
It's just versatility of card, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's like any modal cards let you do different things. Yeah, always really useful. I really like the cases as well. I think they're definitely going to find a home.
I was a big fan of them as well. I really enjoyed them.
There's a lot of really good multicolored cards. I didn't really open many of them, but yeah.
I weirdly did open quite a few, but they were of every other colour that I wasn't using, so it was never gonna. It wasn't even like the disguise cards where you could sneak them out. There was like blues and greens, and it's like I can't get them out.
You actually managed to play with your promo. My promo was a 7 mana green-white sorcery, which basically unplayable in sealed.
So I did actually pull another rare, which was a Trostani, Free Whispers. So I was like, when I pulled that, I was like, oh, sweet. But by that point, I think Judith was already out, and I'd had Tasia as well, and I was a bit like, my green wasn't the best. White was good as a supplementary, but was it the standout? No. Like I said, that's why I splashed it instead of it being, a core part of the deck, really. But always a bit of a feel bad to put your mythic, or one of the mythics, half decent mythics, to one side and just like, sorry, friend, not today. But yeah, I think from my perspective, I really enjoyed the set. I would only caveat by sort of saying there's a lot of words, and I definitely think, like, obviously it's pre-release, so we're all learning cards. I think there was a lot of games that were either going to time or pretty close. So I managed to get a quick cheeky win in the middle, so I managed to sneak off and grab some lunch, but there weren't many people doing that.
I'm glad I got my lunch beforehand.
Well, I took the gamble and it paid off, but that could have really gone. That could have gone the wrong direction. I was lucky in that respect, but no, I've got a really nice feel to it. I'm looking forward to opening some packs, and we're going to go from there. But on the point of packs, so in the last pod we spoke about the play boosters. Now this was our first time opening and getting to get a bit of a feel for them. Obviously, we only opened what we had in our pre-release kit.
So 6 packs.
6 packs. But what are your thoughts on these? So let's sort of, let's expand from what we spoke about in the last pod. Now we've sort of got our hands on them a little bit. What are your thoughts on them?
They're very interesting. The fact that you can open list cards in them.
Yeah, I like this.
Really good.
Yeah.
I didn't end up going blue. I did open a spell pierce from the list.
Yeah, that's right.
Or a spell. I can't remember the exact name of it, but yeah, it's similar to that. So that was interesting. I couldn't run it, but one of my opponents actually opened a gamble from the special guests as well.
Oh, yeah, nice.
A really good tutor.
Gamble's always it's a great card.
Yeah, they took a 50-50 on it, ended up discarding the land and getting the card they tutored for, which was great for them, not so good for me. But yeah, the special guests and the list cards, really interesting. That'll spice up the drafts and sealed events, I think.
Yep.
And there wasn't too many of them, so it certainly didn't. It felt like there was some powerful things you could open.
Yep.
But it didn't ruin the format by any stretch of the imagination.
No, that was something I noted, actually. I think I saw a couple of list cards, but they weren't like broken. They weren't sort of like, oh my god, we've now got to deal with something completely out of left field. It feels like, from what I've seen so far, that the list cards they've put in this set are there to supplement it and help it more so than are just kind of going to dominate it. Do you know what I mean?
I know that Sir Conrad is on the list.
I did. Yeah, I did.
I wouldn't be happy if my opponent had a Sir Conrad. There's a lot of trades going on with 2/2s blocking and dying.
Well, also with Sir Conrad and with collecting evidence as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you had that out and the soul evasion like I did as well, that's just going to be real good. Yeah, that could get.
Yeah. But
spicy.
At the end of the day, that's just one card from the list, so the chance of you seeing it are close to 0.
Well, getting list cards is. I saw one list card from all my packs, and I would imagine that is probably the average.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The fact you can get multiple rares compared to obviously you'd always been able to get a foil rare from a draft booster if you're lucky. But the fact this has got a wild card slot, I actually opened a pack and got the same rare. It was in blue, so it didn't really help me my seal pool. But actually, it's like that was cool.
Yeah.
As well, because the wild card being able to be a rare or mythic, again, it's just going to increase the amount of rares you see.
Look, I know obviously just because you pull a rare doesn't mean it's going to be fantastic and it's certainly not going to bomb, but it does increase the chance of that. Go on, sorry, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got a chance of pulling it from the foil slot as well. So I didn't get any triple rare packs, but I did get a double rare pack. And I feel that's always going to feel better than opening a draft booster and just getting one rare.
Yep.
Whether these don't feel nearly as powerful as set boosters. No, I would say.
But I think for sealed play, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it has been the halfway house between a draft and a set, and it feels like that opening them. I felt a lot happier opening these than I ever have done draft boosters. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, you're always going to be, up on what a draft booster was, and you will open some fun extra cards that are going to enhance your sealed or draft experience.
Yeah.
If you're just buying them to crack them, I feel like I need to open more.
Yeah, I feel like I need to as well.
6 packs, you need to probably open hundreds of these before you get a feel for how different they are to set boosters.
I think you need to. I think you're looking at a box a minimum, if not 2 boxes, to really get a feel for it, because every box is a bit different. You could open a box and you'll be like, oh my god, I've just pulled so many incredible rares. But I could also see the other side of that you don't pull quite so many. So, yeah, more packs required. But I generally have got a really good feeling about these. I would actually be quite keen to draft these.
Yeah.
I think that'd be another experience to go through. But the one thing I do want to mention about them, and I think we touched on this on the last pod, but it's obviously mentioned why we were down at RLGS, is that now they don't have draft boosters, a lower price point pack.
Yeah.
These products are hurting LGSs a little bit.
Yeah, certainly our LGS, and I'm sure a lot of others just won't be opening these for singles. Yeah,
so this is when I wandered in earlier, one of the first things I said to them is did you open any packs? Because I was going to have a snoop through them, try and pick up some cards.
Yeah.
And they effectively said, we can't afford to.
Yeah.
He said, we're just going to lose money if we do it. So they opted to not do it, which is a real shame. Because bear in mind, there was people there that were looking to pick up cards for events that they didn't quite want to, I think we've got events next week that they wanted to attend. They're in a position that if they can pick them up beforehand instead of risking them not turning up in postage and that sort of stuff, we've all been there.
Yeah.
It just felt like a real shame because I love going through, Langdon Games have always been fantastic for that, and I love going through their singles. They've always had great stocks of it knocking around. And I don't feel like they're going to be the only LGS, but it feels like now getting those singles from your local LGS is going to feel like there's going to be a bit of a restriction from there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's their fault. At the end of the day, I know it's very easy to, boohoo business, but, they are a business. They can't be losing money hand over fist, and it does feel like this product maybe has just tipped the balance a little.
I would be interested to know if they sell as many of these as they do set boosters.
Yeah, as something that I'm going to be touching base with them and see how this goes. The only thing that might happen is because they don't have draft boosters, whether it almost forces the hand of players and they just accept the fact that these are more money. But we'll have to wait and see. But it also affects prize pools as well, because when they're giving away play boosters instead of draft boosters, it means the events are more expensive for us to play. I don't personally have a problem with it, but it might end up pricing people out of it. Obviously, then it's more expensive for prize pools. Yeah, just flat out. You know, I think from an LGS perspective, these are a bit more problematic, and I hope it doesn't change LGSs in a way that it causes them harm.
Yeah.
I think time will tell with this, because we don't have recommended retail prices, unfortunately, on Magic products. You know, it's a bit of a race to the bottom. I suspect we'll see places like Amazon will be selling these cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't normally like to say go to Amazon for those products. I'm always an advocate of go to your local LGSs, support them where if you can, and then maybe go to places like, you know, Card Market for your singles, that sort of stuff. But I think even for packs, you could go to Card Market, Troll Trader, Magic Madhouse, all those sort of places, TCG Player. Like, you've got places you can go to, but I think the issue is going to be, I think Amazon have probably ordered a lot of this, and what seems to have happened with expensive stuff is they plough their prices down and LGSs just can't sell them at that price point. So I'm always a bit nervous with Amazon as well. They have been known to sell resealed packs. I personally have actually received resealed collector boosters before.
Ouch.
Well, I cannot confirm 100%, but when I've bought enough collector boosters to know what the wrapping looks like, and it looked off to me. And when I opened those packs did not look right to my eyes.
Yeah.
They still were sealed, but they didn't look right. They just didn't look like, when you open enough packs, you know what they look like, and that has made me a bit nervous moving forward for Amazon. The fact that sometimes a third party is supplying those orders for Amazon as well. I'm not saying all of them, but yeah, I've felt like I've been scorned with that a little bit, because that box was horrific as well. And I think, you know, if I'd brought that from Langdon, I would have just gone, all right, fair enough, because I know, you know, they're not tampering or anything like that. But yeah, it made me a bit nervous from that sort of thing. So I hope they don't just drop prices deep down and low. It will affect LGSs and stuff like that. But the caveat to that is if it brings it down to a price point that allows people to buy them in boxes to be able to draft them.
It's a bit rough when Amazon sell them for less than it costs the LGS from their distributor. That is just...
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive problem. I think it's a big, big problem. Obviously, you know, look, Amazon are buying hundreds of thousands, millions of units, so they can't afford to do that. Look, that's just business. That, you know, that's what happens. I just think it's a real shame that LGSs are probably going to end up losing out on certain things.
I would say go buy a box of these play boosters from your LGS and 100%. Draft them, play 100%. Seal with them, see what you think. I think they're pretty cool.
I've genuinely enjoyed them. They've left me... I was going in open... I know we spoke about this previously, but I was going in open-minded about them. I was aware of the cost increase. But from what I've opened so far, I felt like there has been more rares and more value in the packs overall than if I was to open draft boosters.
Yeah, there is that, but obviously they cost the same as a set booster, so you're probably not getting as much as you would have been from the set boosters. But
it feels better.
Yeah,
it definitely feels better to me. I've been open about this beforehand anyway. I've not really. I don't buy draft boosters because I always feel like, yes, they're a cheaper price point, but I always feel like you get less for that money. Whereas I feel like a set, you pull a nice list card, sweet. You know, even if it's not big mega money, it's probably going to see some play in one of my commander decks or something like that. But I think you put it really nicely. More boxes need to be open, more packs need to be before I really fully make a decision on this. But so far, I've been pretty happy with them. We've been quite impressed with them.
I think in some regard, because the price point's going up, you might see just less cards in the market. Cards are going to be harder to get hold of. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you want particular mythics, especially.
I have always been a little bit aware of this. I know there's been a series of years of, excuse me, buy singles, don't buy packs. I do wonder with this as well. Even before this, I thought what I'm about to say is going to come up, but I think with this and maybe not so much packs being opened, I think what might end up happening is that chase cards are just going to get more expensive because there's going to be maybe less of them opened. I hope I'm wrong in this respect. I really, really do. I know people are always going to open this, don't get me wrong, but are they going to open as much in previous? Well, hopefully we'll find out. This time next year, maybe we can discuss.
So I know you like chasing shinies, but there's some interesting showcase borders this set.
Yep.
And you've got the invisible ink.
Yep.
As well. What are your thoughts on the showcase?
I haven't seen any invisible ink yet. I'll be interested to try and see some of those. I've got a collector booster box. Hopefully, I'll have to get one of them in there, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about these showcases because I think the colour identity needs to be more obvious. I'm looking at one right here. This Persuasive Interrogator. It's a black card, but it looks white. Unless you're looking at the pips, it looks white, and I think that could be a bit problematic. At the very least, I think what they should have maybe done is made it like a faint black colour. So what the artwork is it looks like case files, which is that sort of like manila, sort of very sort of beigey colour looking. But the problem is they look like that on the card as well. So it's not a horrific issue, but I do think that it needed to be a bit more. The identification of colour needs to be a little bit better. What are your thoughts on it?
I definitely agree. They all look like white cards.
Yeah.
On the legendary cards, they've got the little coloured border at the top, which you can see beyond the thing, but it effectively looks like a white card. And the only thing that really is different is the mana symbols. Because it's got like a little smudge over it. So the one I'm looking at has got a little like black smudge, and then the other one, the white one, has got a little gold smudge effectively. So, but it's just not identified well enough. Basically, is what I would argue about that. So, what are your thoughts on that, then, Don? I think it should definitely be clearer. They effectively just look like white cards. The whole card is kind of just a slight off-white. The only real way to tell is to look at the mana cost.
Yeah, so there's basically what effectively looks like a smudge over it. So the black one's got like a greyish smudge over it, and then the white one's like a gold smudge. So, look, I just think it's not quite. I think if the whole thing had that like smudging effect over it, maybe it'd look weird, but at least you could identify this is a black card, this is a white card, that's a red. It would have been a lot more obvious. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
there's like a little half watermark in the corner as well, which is the same colour as the smudge, but it's just not quite enough.
Yeah, I think realistically, it just needed a bit more identification, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they could have used the colour symbol. Like some cards have a little colour symbol next to the creature name.
Yep.
That would just make it clear.
Just something a bit more clear.
An indicator of some kind.
Yeah, 100%. I think that just would have. It just would have done a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? But them and themselves, actually, put that all to one side. I'm a bit meh on it.
Yeah.
I think some of the showcase stuff in the past has been incredible. Has been the stuff that I've wanted to go get, and I just don't. These don't do it for me. Yeah. Personally, they just don't do it for me. This is not the type of showcase card that I want to chase after. I don't hate them, but there is an argument that I would rather a normal version to the showcase version, which goes against what a showcase version should be. Yeah,
in some ways, yeah. I think so. These are the dossier showcase that we're talking about, but there's actually two other showcase versions within the sets. You've got a kind of a magnifying glass. So
those ones, they're a lot nicer, and this is in my opinion what they should have done. Instead of having the dossier, the manila file. I get why they've done that. Like I do. But I think these other ones, they are a lot nicer. They're a lot better. They are a bit more of what I would say a showcase should be and what I would expect from a showcase. I think that's probably the way I would.
Yeah, I really like the magnifying glass ones. I didn't open a Ravnica one because there are the Ravnica ones as well, which are a lot nicer with the kind of
Yeah, they were really nice. Those were fantastic. In fact, those were really, really good. They hit for me, they hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, so I'd say 2 out of 3 hits, I guess, is okay. But yeah, some of these dossier ones are just, they're fine, but they should have been a bit clearer as to what colour the card is.
Bit more showcasey, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe next time, Wizards?
Yeah.
Excellent. Fantastic. I just want to quickly touch on the promos we got today as well for playing. So I'm particularly jealous of your promo because, well, why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, so once again, you got everyone who attended the pre-release in your kit as a legendary creature, and you can't put it in your pre-release deck. So luckily, it was carefully explained at our pre-release by Langdon Games that you can't put this into your deck. And I know it has been a problem in the past where they've done these exclusive promos that you can't put into your sealed deck. Just confuses people. Just give them to the LDS and they can give them out.
This is exactly what I was going to say.
After the event, when they give out the prizes, that's going to solve the problem.
I get why. Well, I think we get why they've done this. You know, it's getting people to buy these boxes, attend pre-release. I just think if they gave them to the LGSs, you know, look, you know, once you've at the end when they're giving out a prize pool, everyone gets a promo card. Like,
yeah,
you know, even if you'd lost every single game, you're getting a promo card, and these are relatively sweet. Why don't you speak through your one and I'll go through my one because these are pretty cool.
Yeah, so the one that I got is the one I definitely wanted.
Yeah, you did want this one actually. You talked about this last pod.
It's Voja, the Jaws of the Conclave. It's 2 generic Nio. It's red, green, white. And it's a legendary creature, wolf. 5/5.
Yep.
With vigilance, trample, and ward 3.
Oh, ward again.
Yep.
God love it.
And whenever Voja, Jaws of the Conclave, attacks, you put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control, and draw a card for each wolf you control.
Elves, wolf, tribal deck?
Elf, wolf, kindred deck, I guess, these days.
I suppose. Yeah.
And this is quite unique. I know there's actually elves that produce wolves, and there's, you know, wolves are cool, elves are cool. Throw them all in a deck, and this card is very powerful, I think.
I think it's definitely one of the better ones. I knew you was chasing after one, and I'm glad you got it as well. But that is really, really nice. So I presume you're definitely gonna build a commander around that, I presume.
Almost certainly going to build this. Yeah, I think even if all your elves are mana dorks, because it puts counters on.
Oh yeah,
it's permanent buff. Every turn they're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And drawing cards for each wolf you control. You're just going to be drawing a lot of cards, pumping your whole team. And then, crushing your opponent.
There is a lot of elves that will put counters on and whatnot. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds like it's, in terms of commander, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer deck, really, isn't it? And I think it's going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah. I think you'll have to get the balance right. You probably want more elves than wolves.
I think you could I think if you're not careful, you could stumble with this deck. With that commander, and I think there'll be some fine tuning. But I think once that fine tuning, I think that could be real nice.
I think being in green, obviously, there's a lot of white green elves as well, and putting you in red for haste, and it's just real good. So we'll see how that turns out.
Very nice. So my one I got was Melek Reforged Researcher. Is a free generic red and green. It's red and blue. Sorry. He is a legendary creature, a weird detective, which is awesome.
Interesting.
He does look weird, to be fair. He reads Melek Reforged Researcher's power and toughness are equal to twice the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. Okay, that's cool. But the last part is the real sweet. First instant and sorcery spell of you cast of each turn costs 3 less to cast. I mean,
that's powerful.
So this is definitely a Spellslinger deck. And the problem I found whenever I built Spellslinger decks is that, yes, there's always cards that reduces the mana of it, but even the big powerful ones or the big mana ones, you're always a bit like, oh, this feels a bit late game or whatever. 3 less to cast?
Ooh.
I mean, extra turns comes to mind.
Yeah, pay 2 blue, get an extra turn. That seems
I mean, that's pretty sweet, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's the extra turns that's banned? That's 2 mana. Time Walk.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Time Walk? 2 mana, take an extra turn?
Something like that.
Something like that? I mean...
All your extra turn spells are going to be Time Walks. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Or you're paying 3. Like,
Yeah.
and that's going to be your first. I don't know. Like, I think this could be... I think I am probably going to build this because I just was talking to you before we started. I wanted to rebuild another Spell Slinger deck. So actually, this is probably going to be pretty perfect. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is if you've got some nice, I'm going to exile your graveyard cards knocking around. Bye-bye, Malik. Also, because it's 5 mana, this dies once or twice. This is going to be expensive to recast. So... personally, if this was Jeskai, I would I'd feel a bit more comfortable because I've got a bit more protection. But then again, equally, blue counter spells, you know.
I think there's a lot of red instant. Is it instants and sorceries?
Yeah, instants and sorceries.
Yeah, so you've got, you know, like 4 cost red spells that create 2 treasures, draw 2 cards, discard. You know, all of those ones just will allow you to build up treasures early on and just pay for his extra mana cost.
What's the is it Fiery Conference? I think that's 5 mana, isn't it? And 2 of that is red, but you can choose different modes and they're 1 damage to each creature, or 3 damage or 4 damage.
Yeah.
Like that's like 2 mana basically. That's 2 reds.
Yeah.
With this.
It's only the first spell, but I feel like you're always gonna Yeah, but
I don't mean to be funny with a card like this. If you get something like Thousand Year Storm, you're going to double that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you pay a massive spell first,
and double it.
Yeah.
And then you get incredible value from it.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I think that's really, really good. And because if it's of each turn, I mean, instance, I love the card Memory Deluge.
Yeah.
And I just sit there and I think to myself, Memory Deluge is, I think if I remember off the top of my head, is 2 blue and 2 generic. Well, that's 2 blue.
Yeah.
For a Memory Deluge.
I think because it's each turn, you can cast something in each other player's turn in the multiplayer game.
Yeah. So actually,
that's real good.
The good thing as well is because sometimes a lot of these like really big mana spells, they are just 1 or 2 mana too much, really.
Yeah.
And you feel like it's like, well, that'd be great if they're a bit cheaper. This makes them cheaper.
It feels like
there's the second one.
A home in this deck for maybe some older cards that might not have seen play.
Exactly.
But actually, at a discount of 3 mana, you're
exactly.
Right now. Yeah.
I think I'm going to do some research into this, but what I can really see myself doing is building this with a copy spells.
Yeah.
And the idea, it'll be big spells with a copy or a copy effect, and then defend with counters. I think that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to do some research into it. But yeah, I think this is not a bad little promo.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be a funny moment, like you said, where you've got like 5 in your graveyard. He's a 10/10, then someone exiles your graveyard, and he's a 0/0.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But equally...
But he's going to get real big real fast as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There is lots you could do there. I actually wonder whether you could... I wonder really whether you could get some of those really big buff spells and play almost a bit of a... the word has gone from me. You're trying to get commander deck, but commander damage, basically.
I feel like even stuff like the card that you like really enjoyed from your previous
Chases On.
1 red, effectively, in this deck if your commander's out.
For a 3/3 first strike and a clue token.
Yeah, and then it's going to go to the graveyard and he'll get +2/+2 from that.
Yeah, exactly. Like
incredible.
That's what I was going to say. It's either big spells or combat tricks, because you play combat tricks, you're going to buff it already, so it's like a double whammy. I mean, that could be... It could be real nice.
You can fireball your other opponents and then kill someone with commander damage, I guess. Is a good way to take out an extra opponent. So that'd be interesting to see. Yeah,
I'm interested in yours as well. I think, maybe we should... I think we're going to have to build these. We're going to have to definitely go in a pod together and play with them.
Sounds good.
Maybe have a little report with them at some point, but that'd be really good. Maybe try and find 2 other people with 2 of the other promos and have like a promo off.
Yeah. There was one other, which was the Tomic.
Yes.
The Orzhov character.
That's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I can't quite remember exactly what.
Kieran opened him in his pre-release kit. But I can't remember.
Well, he so a little bit before we started, he specifically said that he was looking for that card, wasn't he? So it's always nice when you get that. So what he is a Tonic Wielder of Law. So it's a generic white-black legendary creature human ambassador. It's 2/3. Got affinity for planeswalkers. Ooh. Which is this spell costs 1 less for each planeswalker you control. I mean, I don't know if there's much planeswalkeries knocking around.
I feel like that's just a little nod to the fact that he's married to Ral.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's just a cheeky, like, in-law kind of reference.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
He's a flying vigilance. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or a planeswalker you control, that opponent loses 3 lives and you draw a card. I mean, I could see like a bit of a planeswalker tribally deck with that, maybe. You get value off them attacking you and your planeswalkers. Great, you do 3 damage, I'll take a card. Maybe.
These cards are standard legal, aren't they? I think.
I believe so, but you can't use them you couldn't use them in the pre-release.
Pre-release, but yeah, actually 3 mana for a 2/4 flying vigilance with that effect is probably fine.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, obviously, previous sets maybe not so much, but in recent sets we are seeing less planeswalkers, so it makes it less problematic. But that in like a War of the Spark, maybe in Pioneer or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to sort of say. The problem is if your planeswalkers aren't doing anything other than dying and giving you a card, are you playing the deck right? Would be the argument. I'm sure there's better ways to build that. That's the first thing that popped into my head. But
this is an interesting build around. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with that one, really, wouldn't it be?
One thing I did note is that apparently there's multiple arts within the set that are slightly different.
Yeah.
Which hasn't really been advertised. So apparently there's a version of this Tomic. So the default one, he's riding on the back of a gargoyle. Now apparently there's a version of this where he's riding a griffin.
Yeah, we were being told this earlier, weren't we? Which I've not seen.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to try and see if that crops up.
I know there's been a couple of cards where there's like a vampire stood next to a curtain, and the curtain is a different colour. It's like white in one, red in the other.
Oh, okay.
It'd be interesting to see if there's other cards within the set that have those different art treatments.
So I think in terms of a lot of the card designs early on, they were talking about there was a lot of hidden like sort of little Easter eggs or stuff like that, so maybe it's part of that. It must be a part of that, in fact, but it'd be interesting to try and flag some of them down. The more that's open, the more we'll see that gets released.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. Overall, it sounds like we've both enjoyed our pre-release experience, and we've both so far enjoyed the set and enjoyed the play boosters. More packs need to be opened, but all in all, I feel like we had a good day, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always a good event at Langdon.
Yeah, I love going to play there. It's always, it's my LGS, so I'm going to say that, but I always love it. They're always inviting. There's plenty of people around. Always good events held down there. Yeah, they're always a good bunch down there as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Happy days. Right, okay, so thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out both our socials on Instagram and Twitter/X. I'm also on TikTok as well, so if you want pack openings, feel free to drop over there. We'd like to hear your feedback and comments on this episode and previous episodes. We'd also like to hear what you want us to talk about in the future, so please get in contact. But once again, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you later, Don.
See ya.